Okay, so good evening. My name is Robert. So welcome to this YouTube live session, which is going to be on how to write a book. So in this session, I'm going to give you the story of my last year. And this is obviously going to be live on my YouTube page after this is finished, for those of you that are looking to develop it afterwards. So in this session, I'm going to be looking at many different statements, many different areas on the past year and how I've come to write a book and what I've been doing in the past year to help support that. So basically, it was around December, not of last year, the year before, 2016, where, you know, when you're at home over the holiday period and you're looking for something to do, something to entertain yourselves. So I basically come across the idea of writing a non-fiction book. And that's pretty much what I'm going to be talking about within this YouTube live session. Although the theories behind this non-fiction book can be replicated and it can be put into if you were to write a fiction book, for example. So I'm going to go through the stages of what I did, how I went about writing it whilst I was still running a business at the same time, and then also what I did in terms of getting a publisher and working from that point onwards. Because I'm now at the point where the publisher is about to release a book. The pre-sales are going to be coming out at the end of this month. And then we'll be going live with the main launch in the spring of 2018. And so first of all, let's have a look. Now, the first thing that you need to be doing is obviously to do a generation form, where I started off. This is something, a form which I produced on my own. What this gave me was it gave me the ideas of what I was actually going to write about and how I was going to do it. And this is a form which you can just put into sort of like a table, and you're going to ask yourself questions on this form about what am I good at. A really good one that I found was, what type of advice do people get from me, or how do people approach me for information? Because I think if people ask you for advice, then it kind of shows that you're some sort of thought leader or experienced person in that field. And it could be about anything. You know, my book was more business related. However, you could have different variations of different subjects going off from that. Now, as well as that, you could also start to think about, on this generation form, what are other people in my friendship or work circle good at? Because, you know, very often you could be writing the book about your own experiences, but you could be having a co-author experience with someone else, or you could be writing about someone else's experiences. Again, when I talk about this, I'm writing in the style of a non-fiction book. However, you know, the generation form could be something that you could develop if you were putting together that fiction book in its own right too. So the generation form, put together this table, talk about what are you good at, what do people ask advice for you on, what do people around you do? Start to sort of brainstorm ideas. Talk about what are you good at in your professional life. You know, maybe you're an estate agent and you want to write a book on how to sell your house quickly, or if you're a police officer, you know, an insight into the working minds of you. You know, and I think that's the great thing about fiction books. You could go down many different lines. So that generation form stage is quite interesting for you to explore ideas. You know, it's a way in which you can start to brainstorm more and look at different perspectives and different views in what you could probably do. Now, the next stage from developing that brainstorming session, so before you've even begun putting pen to paper and writing, is to look at the interest in your subject. Because by now, after the generation form, you've got an idea about what the book is going to be about and who it's going to be for. So now you're going to look and do some research online. Now, there's some really good websites which you can look at, such as Google Trends. Now, this is quite good. I mean, my book was on, or is called, How to Build a Community in Your Business. Now, this is about how leaders need to take this community lifestyle, because, you know, we all know good things come out of a community, and build it into their organization. So when I was looking at Google Trends, I was looking at searches for leadership, organizational culture, developing a business, putting together this productive lifestyle, communities. You know, I'm searching for these key trends, and I'm searching for it to see if there's any popularity in it. Okay, sure, you could go and write the book and title the book on different areas. However, those trends are going to be quite key. Because don't forget, one of your key sales tools later on are going to be things like Amazon, in which you would sort of want the searches to represent what your book is about. So the title is very specifically key in this case. I came up with the title, My Book, How to Build a Community in Your Business, because I specifically looked at those words, business, community. The subtitle of the book is actually To Power Innovation and Productivity. So, there's some very strong and key words in there which you can use to then put into the main context of it. Now, feel free to shoot any questions if you wish to on this live chat. Now, after you sort of look at that, I also then went and looked at other things. Very specifically, go and look at Amazon and other places like that, because you're going to have to look at what people are currently buying and searching for on Amazon. It's also very good to look at the genres of books which are on sale at Amazon to see which one your book is going to fit in. And also look at who are the best sellers on Amazon. Is there any specific coincidence with the titles, the names of the titles? I mean, from my own research, I found that some titles which were selling were books are about how to or my experience, specifically in that non-fiction genre. So, getting the right word of that title is quite good. And that's where a lot of your research can come from, because the title of the book will then stem into what the book is about in more detail later on. But yeah, definitely the search on Google Trends, on normal Google, look at Amazon, look at book sales charts as well, because again, you want your book to be sold, Yes, we're doing it for a hobby because we're passionate about writing, but at the same time, it's something that we would like to earn that little bit of money from later down the line. So looking at all these different components and gathering your research is going to be the next critical thing that you need to do moving forward. Now, after you've created sort of that interest, you've looked at your generation form, you've gathered the research stages, this is where you're actually now going to start putting together what I call the book master plan. Now, the master plan is very simply like your table of contents before you've even written the contents of the actual book in the first place. So what I specifically did was I wrote down the key titles of each chapter which I was going to talk about. Innovation in business, developing the community, entrepreneurship in communities. These were all my main subtitles, all my chapters of my book. And then what I chose to do after that was I chose to look at specific points, and I started scribbling down in these sections what I was going to write about in each chapter. Now, again, I'm talking about this non-fiction book. However, you could simplify this to any sort of means or way of working. So let's have a look at this in more detail. From this point, you're then going to obviously start writing the book, but I think it's key to put the master plan together, because without the master plan, you can't just go off free writing on a range of subjects. It was interesting because later down the line, when I was looking at writing the book, I didn't conventionally write it chapter by chapter. I found myself jumping from chapter to chapter because I wanted the book to be interlinked in many different ways. Again, this is more of a business book, so I found that was my preferred way of writing. It also kept me a lot more motivated, I would say I'm a traditional die-hard writer at the start, so finding ways in which I can motivate myself based off the book's master plan were some very key areas that I needed to consider. Now, once you've got that master plan together, then basically you're going to start writing. Now, my key tip for you, or what I would suggest for you to do, is really to set yourself a target. Start to think about how many pages you would like to write a day. Now, at the very start, I gave myself a target of 3 A4 pages of writing on my laptop to do every day. Now, maybe that was a little bit more positive thinking at the start, I don't know. I stuck to it at the start, but of course things get busy. I'm running a business at the same time. Some of my key tips for writing a book, I mean, I live in London, so I was writing the book whilst I was on the tube going to a meeting or various things, just using notes on my iPad or something like that was a very good way of me getting the book written quite quickly. And as soon as I had thoughts and ideas, I would put that into the notes on my iPad. on my iPhone. Then when I get home, I would type it up. But realistically, I think quite a decent target from that starting point was 3 pages a day. Now, depending on what your book is about and what you want to write about, you need to consider how many pages you want your book to be. Now, initially, I set my target of around 80,000 words. I mean, we're probably looking in that sense of around 180 to 200 page book. Now, what I found happening towards the middle of it, I actually came in at around 60,000 words in the end. So I was around 20,000 lower than what I predicted. However, as I wrote the book, I realized the layout of the book and how I would incorporate more images and business diagrams into that. So that was kind of important for me to then think about that as I was writing. And that's something which later on I would then go to the publisher with as the style and the layout and what I wanted it to actually be about. So as you're writing, start to think where you're going to insert images and drawings and how sort of the book will look in your mind. And it's quite good, I think, to have that image in your head very from the start whilst you're writing it. Now, I mean, I actually wrote the book. I started it in December of 2016 and I finished it in October of 2017. I mean, along the way, there were periods where I didn't do any writing, just work got busy. However, really try and stick to it. I mean, if you can stick to the goals, which I did, you can come out with some quite positive work. So the 60,000 word book which I wrote did get published in the end. And I think what you need to be doing, as soon as you've completed your research and you've got your book master plan together, as well as starting to write the book, this is where you need to be coming up with the business plan, a book plan, and treat it exactly like a business plan. Now, there are 2 different ways you could go about in actually getting the book to market, really. You could go down that whole self-publication way, or you could go through a publisher. I mean, I used a site called Publishizer to get my book. It's almost like a crowdfunding site for authors who are going to go out and then want to publish their book. You create a page. Basically, you're building up pre-sales on this page. And what publishers are actually looking for is demand in your book. You know, if you're building up a strong campaign and getting pre-sales coming through, you'll start to see messages coming through from the different publishers who are interested in your book, and you'll start to see offers coming through. I mean, even on this site, you will start to get a lot of publishers come through who will offer you self-publishing deals or ways of supporting you in self-publishing. That wasn't the way I went down. I went through a traditional publisher route, which went down a royalty payment route. I mean, don't be disheartened. My campaign on Publishizer actually didn't go that great. I didn't make many pre-sales off that. However, I still grabbed the attention of one publisher out there, and I was managed to get a publishing contract on a royalty-based payment. So I think the use of these websites are very good. And like I said, don't be disheartened if the campaign isn't going too well. I think what you need to be doing is really starting to spread the word about what you're doing whilst you're writing the book. Now, one thing I noticed that's very different when I was writing this business book is a lot of publishers will take you on at this stage if you have an idea or if the book is only a quarter or half finished. Now, I think this is a very different approach to if you're writing a fiction book, let's just say, where they may look for an overall finished product. I think it's the way in which they see the book as commercially viable. So basically, within my campaign, I submitted a couple of chapters or examples of some of the chapters. The main layout of the book, I had a video explaining what it was about, who I am, my credentials. And then before I got the contract, I submitted my manuscript to date. I mean, at the time, we're saying that was only around 9,000 words. But I think the author from that and that master plan of the book can start to see where it's going and what it's doing. The publishers will probably give you deadlines by that point on completion. And don't forget, the publisher will sort of read through the manuscript, suggest recommended changes to you, and you find it's sort of like a ping pong thing going on at this stage where you're going to and from and adding different contexts and words in. Now, the other key thing you have to remember if you're going down the route of crowdfunding on Publishizer is that you'll have to have some sort of book cover on there as well. I mean, this doesn't have to be very costly. You could do something very simple on Canva, or you could get a simple book design done on Fiverr.com. I actually paid a little bit more on 99 Designs because I wanted it to be a very good quality book cover. I wanted my campaign to look very serious. And I would say that's one thing how you could make yourself stand out a little bit more. Shows that you've put that little bit of investment into the actual funding stages and how serious you are as to getting your book out there from the starting point. Now, I mean, from that point onwards, obviously in my route, the publisher takes over a lot of the marketing, but supports you along the way on rights internationally for the sale of the book, and sort of gives you guidance, and actually also helps connect you with like authors. I found my publisher, who is Motivational Press, quite good in connecting me to other authors who have radio shows or various other social outlets in order to help bring the content of the book more to life. However, if you're going down the self-publishing route, I think that's one thing you need to take into consideration, your actual marketing plan, because you do need to be treating it like a business in effect. I mean, even though my publisher is doing a lot of the marketing for me, you know, I still put a lot of time into marketing myself as a person, putting a book launch together and buying copies of my book from the publisher to sell at specific events. And it's all about really selling it and promoting it towards the Amazon pages, because what you want to be doing at the time of finishing your book and starting to market it a lot more is to be that Amazon top seller. And really, this is about you. Again, this goes back to that research stages and looking at what Amazon is, what it can offer you. Some of the key things that was mentioned to me at the very start was, you know, having your author page ready on Amazon, because this is what's going to help drive you sales. Obviously, your book page, you'll need to have the relevant tags in there to make sure people are drawn to that specific section. But I think my honest advice is to go back to the start and make sure you do have the right title, subtitle. And I know people say never judge a book by its cover, but you know, when you're going through the publisher, if you're self-publishing, these are some of the things that you need to consider. I mean, some of the things that later on down the line, which I've helped to promote myself currently in the run to sort of pre-sales coming out, is working with a charity. I'm working with a local charity in London, a disability support charity called Ellingham, and I'm offering them 5% of each book sale, which is quite good because they then get their name on the inner sleeve of the book. And in addition to that, you know, I'll promote them at my events. But also the good thing about that is the charity also promotes you as well. So it's quite good to get that in. I mean, some other good ideas which has come about now in the promotion of the book is, you know, you could speak at corporate events and you could have special editions of the book published with a company logo on. You know, these are all good ways which relate to the actual sale of the book in itself and developing it from there onwards. I think going about putting press releases is also very good. If you have a publisher, that's something that will happen naturally. But if you're self-publishing, again, that's something that you need to consider. And I think it's all about building up your author page. I mean, from the minute I started writing the book, I would use my social media channels to say, oh, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm writing, only 9,000 more words to go. You know, I put pictures of it. I did a lot of traveling and research into my book, so I put pictures of that. And I wrote mini blogs along the way. Oh, by the way, this is something that, you know, so it's kind of like bringing in that, driving people's attention to what you're writing about, and then linking it all to your own web page. So my advice on that would be to have a web page under your name, which would have blogs and updates and various things like that, but eventually would have the sales page on there as well. Now, this is all about the sales and the marketing of the book, but really, it's hard for me to explain. It's something that you always need to have on the back of your mind along the writing of the content. And even though the content is important, it's about getting it right. And that's something that which will develop through time. and how you're motivated. Like I said, I gave myself specific targets every day. However, you know, I jumped from chapter to chapter because that kind of made sense when you read my book. But my only key bit of advice really for you to take from there is to go ahead and really sort of focus on the marketing and how you're going to see the vision right from the word go. Get people involved, even if you're not a co-author. In my non-fiction book, I worked with companies and got their own opinions in there as sort of case studies. Because again, if you're mentioning them in the book, the chances are they will be posting that as well, which makes the promotion of the book a lot more better. So this is a very short YouTube live, but I hope you've got a better idea of it now and where we're going to move. So remember that the main points of sort of developing this book idea really do come from what you're good at, what qualifications you're at, then using sites like Google Trends and Amazon to see what's popular, writing your book master plan, then starting to write the book and giving yourself clear targets at each stage. Then you're going to be sort of promoting it, finding a publisher or looking at the self-publishing deals. And then whilst you're writing the book, using the promotion, using companies or charities to help promote yourself, building your author page and building your online presence. Now, I hope that was just a very brief guide. If you've got any other questions, you can contact me here on YouTube, or do check out my videos at robertmitten.com for more information. Thank you.